critics hail Wonder Man as a triumph of storytelling and a comedic love letter to the art of acting. Set and filmed in the heart of Los Angeles, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Ben Kingsley star in Wonder Man. From Disney Plus and Marvel Television, the series follows aspiring actor Simon Williams as he struggles to get his career off the ground. During a chance meeting with a seasoned performer whose biggest roles may well be behind him, Simon learns of a renowned director remaking his childhood favorite superhero film. These two actors, at opposite ends of their careers, doggedly pursue life-changing roles that peel back the curtain of the industry in a way unlike anything we've experienced before. For consideration in all Emmy categories, and now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu. TV Academy members can stream on Disney Plus.
With all the new Harry Potter stuff that's been happening, there was definitely sometimes on the internet when I would suddenly see like these pictures of these three kids starting their own journey. And it's just very surreal and strange, and it provokes very paternal feelings in me, even though I do not know these children and I have not met them. And I've talked to Emma about this a little bit, and I think we all just feel like we want to reach into the screens and like hug them and make sure they're okay.
Hello and welcome to another new episode of In the Envelope, the Actors Podcast, where the biggest names in film, television, and theater offer acting lessons and behind-the-scenes insights you won't find anywhere else. I am your host, Backstage Senior Editor Vinnie Mancuso, and joining me today is, one of the most important names in pop culture over the past 30 years, the great Daniel Radcliffe. Most of you probably know that Daniel played Harry Potter over the course of 7 movies and 9 years, a role that has since afforded him the freedom of a truly delightful post-franchise career on both stage and screen. That includes, of course, a farting corpse in Swiss Army Man, the unhinged Weird Al biopic, and his Tony-winning turn in Broadway's Merrily We Roll Along. Most recently, Daniel has been playing double duty, returning to the Broadway stage for Duncan McMillan and Johnny Donahoe's crowd-interactive one-man show, Every Brilliant Thing, for which he was just nominated for a Tony, as well as starring alongside Tracy Morgan in the NBC sitcom The Fall and Rise of Reggie Dinkins, which also just nabbed him a Gotham nomination. This is a wonderful chat. Daniel is far more candid and open than you might expect for someone who's been in the spotlight as long as he has. We delve pretty deep into not only what he's doing now, but everything that came before, how he's evolved over the years, his approach to celebrity and acting, his thoughts on the new Harry Potter, of course, and just a lot more. Let's get right into it. Here is Daniel Radcliffe. Daniel, how's it going?
Hello. Good. How you doing?
I'm good. I just want to start off by asking, this is not going to mean anything to anyone listening to this podcast, but are Broadway shows different when it is 95 degrees in New York City? Is there a different feeling to them? Because it is 95 degrees in New York City right now.
It's an interesting thing. I sweat a lot doing the show anyway, and so I'm kind of interested to see like how much worse the problem gets today. But I think it'll be good. You'd rather have, I feel like people are generally in a better mood when they've had to, like you can tell sometimes when you get an audience that's coming in, it's just everyone's had to fight through the rain and bad weather, then people can be pretty miserable by the time they get to a theatre. But generally speaking, sunny and hot creates a nice pre-show atmosphere. So hopefully people will just be in like a nice mood, but also happy to get inside into an air-conditioned space.
I was going to say the relief will absolutely add to the show, and we will check in on the sweat, afterwards. Whenever I talk to anyone on the show who's like currently in a Broadway show, I always just want to ask, because I find it crazy that you have a show in like 4 hours from now, like you're talking to me here and then you also have this show. So I do want to ask, like how you found sort of separating your life throughout the day with like momentous thing you're going to be doing in a couple hours from now.
It's a nice thing about doing theatre actually, is that you do sort of get to have a little bit of a life during the day. I find that when I'm filming something, it becomes very all consuming, and the same thing does happen with a play, but you still, I've got some time to like hang out. I can drop off and pick up my kid at school. There's some normal life stuff that actually is allowed to still just sort of happen. And then there's something nice about this show that it kind of gets the process of doing the show is, it starts off, the particular show I'm doing at the moment is very unusual in the way it starts, where if a show starts at 7:00, I'm in the audience at 6:30, half an hour before, kind of meeting people as they come in and giving people, like, assigning people things to shout out during the show. To anyone who doesn't know anything about the show, I know this sounds just insane, but there's a lot of audience participation in the show, and including 5 people who don't know that they're going to be playing parts when they come to the theatre that day will end up being cast in the show every night. And so I sort of spend the half hour before the show doing a few things in the audience, but mostly trying to find those 5 people. And the process of doing that is quite it's a kind of an automatic transition from whatever's been going on in the day to the show at night. So I don't have to do too much kind of methody prep or whatever to like get my head in the right space.
I mean, when we're talking today, I think you're 5 days and like 8 shows away from the end of your run.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? How are you feeling like as the days get closer to it being over?
I'm gonna be really. It's a real mix. I'm both very, very excited to finish, honestly, because there is part of this show that, like, from the very first run through we did in the rehearsal room, every time we get to the end of a run, either in the rehearsal room or a full performance on stage, I get to the end of it and I feel like that's a miracle and we'll never be able to do it again. And I felt like that for most of the run. And we just keep managing to do it, which is great. There is also something I'm not the most introverted person in the world, but I'm also not what I would describe as like a natural extrovert. So there is something to the way this show works and the sort of the meeting hundreds of people as they come in every night, that is both thrilling because it's what makes the show special, and also like my friend Dave has been an associate director on this production, and I've known Dave for 15 years. We worked together on a show years ago, and we've stayed very, very good friends. And we text each other every Monday and just say like, have a great day of talking to 0 strangers. And so I'll be excited. So, but I also will be like, I'll be really sad. And I think there is something about the way this show has allowed me to connect with an audience and just with people that, I will probably never have again. So I'm really going to try and just like soak it all in for these last few performances. And also on a very, very personal level that won't mean anything to like the rest of the world. So the woman that is dressing me on this show, her name's Sandy Binion, and we met on Equus. She wasn't actually dressing me on Equus. She was dressing someone else, but we met then. And then when I came back for How to Succeed, the first musical I did, I asked for Sandy to be my dresser. And so I've known Sandy since 2008, 2009, and she has retired 3 times in the course of my knowing her, and I have pulled her back out of retirement 3 times to keep dressing me. And this time feels like truly the last time we will work together.
Sandy, you're done.
Sandy's done. Sandy's free.
More.
It's like the genie being free at the end of Aladdin. She gets to go and live her life now. And so on a personal note, like it's the last week of what feels like an end of an era in terms of me and Sandy working together, which is really sweet and sad.
I mean, you mentioned Equus, and I'm so interested to ask about like, when you think back to the way you felt when that show was coming to a close, like how would you compare that to the way you feel now, like when a show, either it's this or something else is coming to a close?
I mean, when Equus was coming to a close, I think there was a huge amount. We did it for I'm going to maybe get the details of this wrong, but we did it for about 4 months in London and about 5 months in New York with a pretty substantial break in between. Or I think maybe we shot the 6th Potter film, or a Potter film was shot in between. And I think when I got to the end of those runs, that was a very intense play. I think I was probably quite excited to be done, but also, again, sad that I think that the ending of that play carried the knowledge that it was the last time I was probably going to work with Richard Griffiths in that way. And like it had been such a special thing to get to work with him and see him work on a play for that long. And that was a really formative thing in my career and in the person that I think I am, because he was such a wonderful human being. And I think everybody can aspire to be a bit more like Richard Griffiths. And so, yeah, I think there was so much of the first, I would say the first 2 times I was on Broadway with Equus and How to Succeed, so much of those runs were, they were the best, and I'm so glad I got to do them, and I've made some of the best friends, particularly on How to Succeed. Well, not on Equus as well, because Sandy and Lorenzo Pizzoni, who was on Equus, is still like one of my best friends. But I think the first 2 runs I had on Broadway were really fraught with the kind of the sense of not knowing if I really belonged here, or not knowing if if people were happy that I was there. I mean, there was always a mix, and some people, of course, were incredibly welcoming. But I feel like the last time I was here, we were still, the first times I was here, we were still really in the middle of the discourse about which is ongoing in a way, but much less than it used to be, about film and TV actors doing stage work, and whether that was something that Broadway wanted or needed, or whether it was something that they wanted to kind of reject as hard as they could. And so there was just a sense, I remember when, and not just on Broadway, when I walked into the rehearsal room for Equus in London, when I walked into the rehearsal room for How to Succeed in New York, I always had a sense of do I actually belong here? Am I good enough at this to be doing it? And so it's lovely to have sort of started there almost 20 years ago, and now to be finishing my 6th Broadway show with a sense of yeah, no, I do, I belong here now. I don't know if I did at the time when I started, but I think, if you come in with the attitude of, not certain, which I never thought that, I feel like the thing Broadway reacts badly to is film and TV actors coming in and acting this is just a sort of killing time in between film jobs, or that they're too big for this or whatever,
checking it off the list,
right? Exactly, which I don't, I certainly never had that attitude, and I feel like I bring a pretty solid desire to work really hard to anything that I've ever done, and I feel like Broadway responds to that. Yeah, so I don't know, it fills me with a lot of pride that I used to really be unsure of myself when I was, day one of rehearsals. And I'm still, obviously everyone's unsure day one of rehearsals, everyone's filled with oh my God, what are we doing? And fear and all that stuff. But I don't I feel like I've been back enough and I've worked enough on Broadway that I'm sort of part of the furniture now in a lovely way, that it doesn't feel like I'm not really talked about as stunt casting or whatever anymore. It now is just oh yeah, he's back again because this is what he does.
I mean, you mentioned the fear. That's something I find so interesting about live theater is it always comes with some sort of risk of, if not failure, then something happening, especially with this show where you're just sort of inviting people up onto the stage. Can you sort of talk about that risk that's involved with theater and how it compares to film and television, the level of risk involved that you go through nightly?
Well, I mean, I suppose there's different sets of risks, which is that there's the kind of immediate risk of doing theatre where something can just go terribly wrong, or you can have a really bad show, or you can whatever it is, or you can screw up. The most I have, I work out a lot. I'm a fitness freak. I do really intense workouts or whatever. I sweat all the time. I have never sweated more in my life than the 4 minutes during the run of Merrily when I was screwing up Franklin Shepherd Inc. in front of a live audience. It happened once off Broadway in a kind of a minor way where I was really embarrassed about it. But if you're in the audience, you might not quite have known what was happening. And then it happened once on Broadway in a way that was it was the worst few minutes of my life, practically. I remember grabbing hold. It was noticeable. Yeah, there was no getting away with it. And so, there's the risk of that happening, and the work you do beforehand is to try and make sure that doesn't happen. But that is the flip side of that is it's also incredibly exciting and it's adrenalized and then it's very, I think that's why it's so fun to do stage and why I keep coming back is that there is, and I think also for somebody coming from the world of film and TV, doing something where you cannot be saved by an editor was a huge amount did a lot for my confidence early on, like the sort of the knowledge that I could survive on stage and do work that was well thought of on stage, I think made me think, well, okay, maybe I'm not like a terrible actor, maybe I've got something to offer here. And so that was huge. And I think that, obviously on film, you've got the luxury of doing it more than once, and you've got the safety of the whole of post-production to have somebody else filter out your bad choices or your bad takes or whatever it is. The downside to film is that if it is bad, it's immortalized. The good thing about theatre is that if that 4 minutes of Franklin Shepherd Inc. is only known to the people who were in that theatre that night, which as embarrassing as it will be, and I've met one person who was there that night, and I still threaten that I'm going to just turn up at his house one day and perform Franklin Shepherd Inc. so he hears me do it correctly once.
I can do it.
I
know how to do it.
I really can, I promise.
It's I kind of want to back up, all the way to sort of the beginning, because to get the sense of, to hear you talk about the actor you are now, to get the sense of how you became the actor you are now, as many people are aware, you were Harry Potter for several years.
Yeah.
I am curious about, when you look back on the run of those movies, if you remember the shift of like feeling like acting was like happening to you versus like it was something you were actively doing, like do you remember when that shift occurred?
That's a really good description of it, actually, in terms of the acting just kind of happening to you. I think the shift started around the third film, because then I was a little bit older and I was suddenly meeting people like Gary Oldman and David Thewlis and Timothy Spall, and people who had, amazing actors who also had not known me when I was super young. So to Maggie Smith and Robbie Coltrane and all those guys, like they met me when I was a tiny kid. And so I think for them to suddenly, when I was 13 or 14, turn and start seeing me as older was something that, they weren't automatically set to do. And also they were, I can't emphasize enough how I think people have an image of the films that we were palling around with all these older actors all the time. And like, actually, I was there for 10 months. Maybe Maggie Smith would be there for 3 weeks across the course of a film. Maybe Robbie Coltrane would do 6 weeks across the course. Like it was much more like we didn't have tons of time with all of them. And so when Gary came in and when David came in, they were people who were meeting me as a 14-year-old. And I think they were ready to treat me a little bit more as an adult. And so they would, I think, not that they would be giving advice, but if they were seeing me start to develop a process or trying to, and the process at that point was really nothing more than like trying to like listen to some appropriate music that would then like psych myself up or whatever it was, they kind of found ways of like trying to nurture that, I think, or certainly encourage it. And so I think it was probably around the third film that started. And then, that was I think there are certain moments in the films where you can see me take a big leap forward. Like I think there's a big change between me in between 2 and 3. I think again around the 5th film there was a bigger change, and I think there were probably not as many changes after the 5th film as there should have been, because that was also the time where I was discovering drinking and other stuff that it was sort of it was counterproductive and getting in the way. But I think it was probably not until after the film stopped that I went on to other projects that then I started making progress again. I'm
still trying to come up with the exact wording of this question, but the people who listen to this podcast, or read Backstage, they're aspiring actors, they're early career actors, so like their goals are very lofty. They want to get to the place where they are in something, progressively get something as big as Harry Potter. I'm curious what the fact that you started with something that would be very hard to reach that size again did for your goals. Like your very first thing was the biggest thing in the world. So like, what did that do for your goals as an actor?
Honestly, it is the most freeing thing imaginable, because you suddenly because I had, then I got out of the franchise and I looked at I would look around at all my peers and friends I was making and people who really wanted to be in something like that. Because and not necessarily for the thing itself, but for then what it does for your career generally and for the kind of autonomy you can take from it. And so I mean, I think being in Harry Potter and having that as the starting point for my career was incredibly freeing, because then you stop it and you go, well, right, I've been in the most commercially successful thing I will ever be in. So how do you define success now? And so I was very, very lucky early on to go, success is making work that I'm proud of and that makes me happy to do. And most people, I think that if I can put it that succinctly, I think like doing Harry Potter early on gave me autonomy. And that's the thing that, most actors spend their entire careers trying to get. So also I would say that, like, looking around at, like, Potter for me, like, I'm very proud of having been in those films. I'm not necessarily proud of my work throughout all of them, but I'm looking on it much more kindly as I get older. But I think that I would sort of look at all my friends who wanted to do, like, I don't know, Marvel movies or whatever it was, and I kind of go like, not why do you want to do that? Because I understand that, but I would look at, like, people who were cutting their teeth in, like, amazing indie films and, like, being discovered and kind of be like, yeah, you're already, to me, doing that kind of work is the biggest reward. I mean, that's the stuff that when I was inside Potter, I was like, oh, I can't wait to get out and do some of that. So I don't know, I actually think it gave me I think becoming famous sort of in the way that I was gave me a really good perspective on fame, which is that it should never be the goal. Like, if it happens as a byproduct of what you're doing, then great. But, like, I can understand, like, people wanting to be rich. Like, that makes total sense. Money, like, life without money is really, really fucking hard. Like, that's not something, but people wanting to be famous, I still don't get. Because I'm like, it's not, like, if you can be the level of actor where you, like, I feel like, I can't remember what this was in. Was it in Girls 5 Ever? I think it was in Girls 5 Ever. Richard Kind is in an episode of Girls 5 Ever, and Richard Kind's just there being like, I have the best life. I work all the time. I get to do a job I love.
It's the dream.
Nobody ever bothers me. Like, that's the level. I'd say if there's young actors out there, like, that's the level you want to aim at.
Absolutely. I mean, I just hearing what you find valuable now. I find it so interesting that actors, when I look at their careers, there's a lot of, like, before and afters. It's like before and after this role. I'm curious, like, from my perspective, from an outside observer, it felt like there was before and after Swiss Army Man. It was like,
interesting.
Oh, this is the kind of post-high career he's going to have. Did it feel like that for you? Did you feel a shift? Because, like, that to me was like the signpost of, like, oh, he really can do what he wants.
That's really nice. Thank you. I think I actually, honestly, I think the shift for me, or the time that I felt that shift, was Equus. I think Equus was something that did leave enough of an impression in the kind of, at the time at least, in the sort of the general cultural consciousness, that even if you didn't see it, it was sort of something you'd heard about, and even if as a director you didn't get to see my work in it, you still went, okay, like, that's not the kind of thing you do unless you, like, seriously want to be an actor and, like, do some kind of wide and varied stuff. And I think there was a series of, I think it was, and for me, like, I always knew that nothing was ever gonna hinge on one film. It was always gonna be about building up as varied a body of work as I could, that even if you didn't see Kill Your Darlings, or you didn't see Swiss Army Man, maybe you saw Horns, or maybe you saw A Young Doctor's Notebook, or whatever it was, where there's just, it was going to be the kind of the sum of the sort of sum total of everything that I was doing. And I do think that, then in terms of films, like Kill Your Darlings and then Horns, like those were some of the movies that I think were signposted. Like, I don't think I get the offer for Swiss Army Man unless I had done, like, Equus and Horns and maybe Kill Your Darlings as well. I think you could just start to send signals out that, like, yeah, I want to do some kind of interesting, weird stuff. I mean, again, the word weird is often applied to my career. I don't see any of these things as weird. They just they just seem like good stories when I read them. But I totally accept that that adjective in terms of describing them. But so I don't know. I think I don't think I see a sort of before and after with one moment, but Swiss Army Man was also a very big moment in my career for sure, and is, I would say, like, I'm pretty sure I can say kind of unequivocally, that is the film outside of Harry Potter that people talk to me about the most if they're coming up to me on the street.
That makes a lot of sense. I am curious, when you look at like purely as like what you value in the work you do now, like what you're interested in as an actor, and even like your personal life, like you have a young child, like the time commitment involved, like what would you find attractive in anything the size of Harry Potter again? Anything that is that size, like what would it need to have for you to agree to do something like that?
I mean, that's a great question. It would probably, I mean, are you talking like years long commitments again?
Like something that would take that level of your life away from you.
I'm not sure if I would ever do that again. Like, honestly, I don't know if now, I mean, maybe after my kid is grown up and moved out and doesn't want anything to do with me anymore, like maybe then I would have the time to do that. But certainly now I don't. I think doing one thing for so long built up a real desire in me to then do as many things as possible afterwards. And the idea that, I had spent at least 1 year to make every film. So the idea that you could make 2 or 3 films in a year, or 2 films in a TV show, or a play and a film, like that was just like, oh my God, I want to, get as many different things under my belt as possible. And if the Daniels came to me and were like, we're doing a massive like 5-part thing, there are certain writers and certain directors that I think if they came to me and were like, we're doing this massively ambitious thing that will span years, then I would definitely obviously consider it. But I don't know what the script is that would have to come in that would make me want to commit for like 10 months a year for the next multiple years.
I love that. I mean, I feel like a Broadway show is like the intensity of that, like contained. It's like,
right.
It's that time commitment in a shorter time commitment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's, again, with plays and musicals, I always think I'm going to, and you get it to an extent, you get time during the day to it, but I always think, I'm going to be able to, I have time to write during the day, and I'll do other things and I'll achieve stuff. And it really never happens, because you do sort of, especially right now with a child, I'm hanging out with my kid and then I'm going to do the show, and there's very little else.
I'm curious, because you've made the very smart choice to not be on social media, to sort of stay away from the internet side of things. I am curious, and like what happens in the brief moments that you do take a peek, when you sort of look online, like, because I feel like at your level of cultural consciousness, it's hard to not run across yourself if you look online.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I truly don't see a lot. Like, very often I'll be doing like a press line and I'll be asked about something, and I'll have to be like, I literally don't know what you're talking about because I am not plugged into that stuff. So yeah, most of the time I really don't. I mean, but it's like, it's the same reaction I have when I'm like, I don't know, if I'm flipping through channels and I see myself for a second, there's just a moment of going like, oh, and I move on as quickly as I possibly can. I guess the last time that like with all the new Harry Potter stuff that's been happening, there was definitely like sometimes on the internet when I would suddenly see like these pictures of these 3 kids sort of starting their own journey on with those stories. And that was something that I did for, it's just very surreal and strange. And it provokes very paternal feelings in me, even though I do not know these children and I'm not, I have not met them. But you just sort of want to, and I've talked to, Emma about this as well a little bit. And I think we all just feel like we want to reach into the screens and like hug them and make sure they're okay and hope that they have a great time. And then sometimes, so the very honest answer is that I went online for the first time when I was like 16 or 17. And like Googled myself or whatever for the first time, and that was just my window into like never do that. Like there's a line in
enough for a lifetime.
Yeah, there was a line in the British, a wonderful TV show called The Thick of It, which is like the British precursor to Veep, where somebody says, never Google yourself. It's like opening a door to a room full of people telling you how shit you are. And that was absolutely my experience. So I was that was a nice reminder to like, yeah, you don't need to open that door.
I mean, I think that's just good advice for anybody. I mean, just don't do it. It's never worth it. It's literally never worth it.
Nope, you're never going to, because you might see something great that somebody's saying about you and you won't believe it, because you'll always believe the things that you fear are true yourself, and you'll just see those things and magnify them.
I mean, to talk about something that's like the opposite of being online. I mean, you mentioned writing. Are you still writing poetry? Is that something you still do in your spare time?
I have written a couple of things in the last few years. I don't write nearly as much poetry as I used to. Like when I was a teenager, I love poetry still, and I still read it to my son a lot, and I like discovering new things myself. I've written one thing that I think is of value since my son was born, about him. But generally speaking, other than that, I don't write a ton of poetry. I do write. I try and work on a couple of scripts that I have written that, hopefully I will get to make one day. I think I used to just think that there would sort of organically be a break in the acting stuff that I would then use to dedicate time to making one of those films. And more I realized that that's actually not going to happen. Is I'm going to have to say to my agent, whatever, like, I'm not working from this date to this date, and I'm going to focus on getting this made, because that's just the kind of energy you have to kind of dedicate to actually getting something off the ground. So I would love to do that, and I would love to direct. Like I love being on film sets. I love being in the middle of them, and I feel like I would be able to run a set in a way that was both productive and, I think, happy. And so I would love to do that at some point. And tentatively I would say in the next sort of 5 years or so, but I who knows. I've learned to I don't want to exactly. I don't want to say something publicly and then someone's like, well, you said you do this by the time you're 40 and you haven't. So because that's just another way of me feeling like I've missed a mark or something.
Have you gotten close? Is this something that you've thought about, gotten close to directing, then an acting thing came in, or is it like truly like you have not had time? You need to.
It's never gotten like that close. I think I sent the script to somebody last year, where if they had said yes, that probably would have been a moment to go like, okay, we're doing it, but they didn't, and it sort of made me go, okay, I think I should probably use this as a sign I need to work on the script more before I send it out to the next person, and then that just hasn't happened yet. The thing I wrote a while ago, and it feels very much, even though it was not that long ago, it feels like of its time and feels like it needs updating sort of already.
Absolutely. So I do want to, just to change tack a little bit, I have to say, as a Rutgers graduate, I never expected in a million years to hear the word Rutgers on television as much as it is in The Fall and Rise of Reggie Dinkins. I do want to ask if a lot of New Jersey research was required to play your role on.
Not by me, but definitely by our writers. There's definitely some real New Jersey, there's got to be a good New Jersey contingent in the writers' room. There's also a lot of weird, like I have friends who go to the University of Maryland, which is where my character in theory teaches. But they're always like, wait, why are you going so hard at the University of Maryland? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just saying this stuff. I'm wondering if it's anything to do with like where Robert and Tina went to school, but I truly don't know why we pick the universities that we pick. But yeah, the recurring joke of all the New Jersey state parks being named after soprano characters, I really enjoy.
It was I was just watching it with my wife. I was like, I never expected to hear Daniel Radcliffe say this many New Jersey towns. Like, I mean, we live in New Jersey. I'm curious. I mean, the show is so wonderful. It's like it's just a perfect modern sitcom, stuff like that. When you look at balancing Broadway, balancing acting, like what is the area of your creative life to just have something that's just so I don't want to say it's not easy. It's obviously not easy, but it's just like it's such a pleasant experience.
No, it is. It's really nice. So I feel like the stuff that I'm looking for right now in terms of acting, it either has to be incredibly, to take me away from my son. It basically either has to be incredibly deeply meaningful or incredibly fun. And Reggie is the latter. Like, there are moments where it's very meaningful and sweet and, heartfelt, but it's generally just an incredibly fun show to make with lovely human beings that make it. And it also films, in New York. So on a number of levels, it is just like kind of the perfect show for me right now. I worked with Robert and Sam Means years ago on the Kimmy Schmidt movie for Netflix, which I think is now like taken off Netflix. I don't know if it's there anymore, but like we did that and I loved them. And then I was a voice on their animated show Mulligan, and it had always kind of been a thing where we would talk and I'd go like, if there's ever something more substantial, like I love you guys and I would love to work with you on something. And so, yeah, when this came along, I was just like, oh, it's a real, like, it's a dream job. Like, it's so, because it is, I'm not going to say, not that the work is necessarily easy, but compared to other schedules I have had, the schedule is really nice. Like, it's 5 days a week. There are some weeks that are intense, but like most of the time there's enough characters that you end up following different people so that it's not the bulk of the time per episode is not falling on one person ever really all the time. So it's just, it's a really nice way of existing. It could run for 10 years and I would be delighted. That is one of the actual things and that's the thing with TV as well. You really are, similar to what I said earlier where I was like, if the Daniels came to me and was like, we're doing a multi-year thing, then I'd be like, okay, great, because I know if there is something going on for multiple years, the Daniels will have a reason for it going on for multiple years. Robert Carlock, Sam Means, Tina Fey, that whole group are the same, where you go like, okay, if this is going to run and run, I know if anyone can make a show retain a sort of a level of incredibly high quality for years and years, it's these guys. So I love doing it. It's an incredibly it's, as you said, not like necessarily easy, but also not like, I'm not having to cry all the time or get covered in mud and blood and have fun. It's a nice way of living.
I'm assuming the moment where your character is compared to Elijah Wood is a late ad. That was for you specifically.
Absolutely. I mean, I basically am encouraged. See, my question and sort of challenge to the writers of this show is it's a show that has so many pop cultural references in it. Like, is there a way of doing a Harry Potter joke that is truly unlike anything else that has ever been done? I feel like the Elijah Wood joke is sort of closest to that in terms of acknowledging a thing that has existed outside the world of Reggie, where we've been being sort of likened to each other for many years. But yeah, I read that line in the script and I was obviously delighted by it. And also it means that my character is canonically older than Elijah Wood as well, which is an interesting.
Immediately looked up both of your brothers.
Yeah, no, I am younger than Elijah, but Arthur is apparently older. So I don't know if we're going to have to stick to that continuity wise in the future.
Just watching this show, I talking about it with you and talking about this show and stuff like that. I know how tough it is to talk about yourself for an hour. So I do like to sort of end these conversations by asking you, if something sticks out in your mind from your career at any time where you were particularly thankful for the scene partner, for the person across from you, and what that memory has meant for you.
Oh my God. I mean, all of them. So, truly, like the best part, doing a one-man show at the moment, I walked into the rehearsals on day one. I was like, wow, this sucks. There's nobody else for me to work with. It wasn't, because like the team we have on the show is amazing and it's very much become a group effort. But yeah, Dane DeHaan on Kill Your Darlings was somebody that I think Dane's a much better actor than me, but he never treated me like that. I think Dane's one of the best actors I've ever worked with, and Dane, in my opinion, can do anything. But he always and I think I had a lot to learn from him, and his willingness to help me get there, and also never be patronizing or anything like that was always stuck with me, because I've had lovely relationships with actors that were older than me, but at that point I'd always been quite intimidated by actors that were like my age, but in my opinion had like a much cooler or more interesting kind of pedigree than I did. And so I've always been incredibly grateful for Dane in those moments. I would also say, working with Richard Griffiths for a year or in Equus was watching him I remember our director, Thea Sharrock, saying to me, you will note, because she'd worked with Richard twice already, and she said, you will notice that Richard's performance starts like at a really good level, but then just gets better and better and better all the way to the last night of the show. And the last night of the show will probably be Richard's best performance, because he never stops trying to understand the character, trying to understand more and more corners, and trying to find more nuances in it. And so to work with somebody for that long and watch them never get bored, never get complacent, and always just be trying to refine stuff on stage was really influential. And I would say that the most influential scene partner I've ever had became not my wife, because we're not married, but my long-term partner, Erin Dark, who we met on Kill Your Darlings as well. And so, yeah, it was when there's this, because we flirt in the library scene, basically. And so there's this weird record of us meeting for the first time and flirting, and like our first kiss is on camera and together. So there's this weird time capsule record of us genuinely meeting and falling in love for the first time, which is a very cool thing to have. Not that I think that film particularly will be a very strange watch for our son at any point, because of what his mum and dad then go on to do in the library, and then what happens with his dad later on in the movie. So I that would probably be low on the list for my son to watch.
Save that a little bit
for after he's already started therapy, perhaps. Yes,
exactly. I do, and just to end here, just because you mentioned, Kill Your Darlings, a sort of really beautiful, straightforward biopic. You've also done Weird, the sort of more outlandish biopic of Weird Al Yankovic. I do want to ask, before we go here, if you've thought at all about the fact that, you are so entrenched in our pop culture that one day there's probably going to be somebody who plays you in a biopic.
Oh, I don't think so. That's the thing. I don't think there will be. I don't think my life outside of my work is not nearly interesting enough. I don't think. So no, I have not thought about that, and I would advise against it. I don't think, and I do think there's something to, I think there's a school of thought that actors need to be less known, and I do kind of agree with that. I think it's a nice thing for people. Like, people think they know me very well, and they don't, because I've been around for so long, but the private parts of my life I've always been able to keep pretty private, and I'm really grateful for that. So and also, like, I don't know, like, unless Elijah Wood and I want to play each other in like concurrent autobiographies, then maybe we'll figure that out, because that just sounds so weird that I might enjoy it.
All right, well, you heard it here first. That's where it was officially announced. Daniel, this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. We can't wait to talk to you again down the road, but for now, this was so lovely.
Thank you very much, Vinnie. That was really lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, as always, to our brilliant producer, Jamie Muffett, and to the whole team at Backstage: Samantha Sherlock, Mark Stinson, Caitlin Watkins, and of course, Kasey Howe. Visit Backstage.com, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage with code ENVELOPE at checkout for a free trial. 100% free, you simply cannot beat that. For more exclusive content, find us on Facebook and Twitter at In the Envelope, and subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Who should we interview next? Let us know. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another peek in the envelope.